With an abundance of art, history, and culture, Florence is a time capsule filled with famous citizens, world-renowned artists, significant events, and an influence that shaped our modern world. While there are many hidden gems that add to the richness of the city's history, the real essence of Florence, known as the cradle of the Renaissance, truly comes to light when you visit its remarkable collection of famous monuments. A trip to the city cannot be complete without visiting them at least once in your lifetime. After exploring almost every corner of the vibrant city and creating a mini-series of 10 episodes, here are our top 5 most popular monuments to visit in Florence. Subscribe to travel with us through all 20 regions of Italy.
I didn't think we'd actually be doing something like this.
Kicking off our list is none other than the iconic symbol of the city of Florence, Cathedral di Santa Maria del Fiore, the Duomo. Located within the historic center of the city, you are guaranteed to pass this gigantic marvel during your stay in Florence. Built on the site of an ancient cathedral before it, it was constructed over the course of 140 years, beginning in 1296. And even after that, the facade of the church wasn't completed until 1887. However, to this day, this monument still holds the title of the largest masonry dome ever built. While the inside of the church is incredibly large, its interior may seem a little bland compared to the elaborate interiors of a few other churches in Florence. The most impressive feature within the church are the extraordinary frescoes of the Last Judgment, housed within the dome. The frescoes span the entire area of the dome and are a jaw-dropping portrayal of biblical events and divine justice through a skillful use of color, intricate detailing, and innovative composition. The cathedral is free to enter, but there may be a pretty long line to get in, especially in the summer.
People are literally sitting in line up there and down here.
There are 5 monuments associated with the Duomo, and while the showstopper is the cathedral itself, by using the Brunelleschi Pass, you are able to explore all 5 of these monuments. You can climb to the top of Brunelleschi's dome.
We actually got to the top a lot faster than I thought we would.
And the top of Giotto's bell tower.
We're like 2 little chickens in a chicken coop.
Visit the Baptistry of San Giovanni, the Opera del Duomo Museum.
Behind me you can see the 3 original doors of the baptistry. St. John's finger over here, the jawbone over there.
And the ancient Basilica of Santa Reparata, located beneath the church. For more information, check out our full video on how to visit all 5 monuments of Piazza del Duomo. Number 2. Palazzo Vecchio, Piazza della Signoria, and the Loggia dei Lanzi. Having been the seat of the municipality since its creation, Palazzo Vecchio is the beating heart of the city of Florence. It was the second ducal residence of the Medici, and is currently the city's town hall. Having been witness to countless historical events, the majority of the palace is now a museum, holding grand halls and chambers adorned with frescoes, sculptures, and tapestries that tell the story of Florence's rich cultural heritage and history. The largest and most important room is Salone dei Cinquecento, the Hall of the 500, with ornate coffered ceilings, large wall frescoes, golden decorations, and imposing sculptures covered in monumental paintings of the Medici and city history. You may recognize this room from the movie Inferno, based on the book by Dan Brown. From inside the building, you're also able to climb the Arnolfo Tower, off-center and built around 1310 on a pre-existing tower, whose foundations rest on an ancient Roman theatre. This tower was once the highest point in the city.
Back in the day before you had your gunfire and that, they would just have these holes and they would drop rocks through here to land on any intruders down below. Imagine you that poor guy at the bottom when somebody drops a rock. You'll just become like squash, like dropping a tomato.
Is this the arrow hole?
Yeah.
Whoa.
The gallery on top of the tower offers panoramic views of Florence.
So they've roped off like the sides of it so you can't really peer over the edge fully, but here they've made a little kind of step-up area so you get a very nice view of the Duomo.
And on the way up, you'll also pass the Alberghetto, a prison cell known as the Little Hotel, which once held Cosimo the Elder, an important member of the Medici family. Along with its medieval structure, the square it's located in, Piazza della Signoria, is an open space that serves as Florence's main cultural and political center. Many famous events in Florence's history took place in the square, such as the unveiling of Michelangelo's David and the execution of Girolamo Savonarola. Each statue in the piazza represents a different chapter in Florence's long history. Obviously, the most popular one is Michelangelo's David, unveiled in 1504 and originally commissioned to be placed in a high niche on the Duomo. Upon completion, it was then decided that David was too beautiful for that location, and so he was placed outside the entrance to Palazzo Vecchio, only to be replaced by a replica 369 years later, which is the one we see today. The other statues you will find here are Donatello's Marzocco Lion, the first statue placed in the piazza and currently a replica. The original statue of Hercules and Cacus, which was hated by the Florentines at the time. Neptune's fountain was also hated and repeatedly vandalized. It was eventually replaced. There is still an ancient plaque instructing citizens not to desecrate the statue or they will risk a fine.
There's literally an alarm and an €800 fine if you jump over this fence. That's how many people have messed with this fountain.
And Giambologna's Cosimo de' Medici. Be on the lookout for a hidden chiseled portrait behind Hercules. There are two commonly heard stories behind this stone portrait, with both suggesting that Michelangelo is responsible for the engraving, and the plaque of the fiery Dominican preacher Girolamo Savonarola's execution. The Loggia dei Lanzi is its very own outdoor sculpture gallery, and includes the original statue of Perseus holding Medusa's severed head, created by Cellini, the Medici lions, one dating from ancient Rome and the other sculpted in 1598, and originally in the Villa Medici in Rome. Giambologna's abduction of a Sabine woman, his defining masterpiece and a product of one-upmanship. Michelangelo had sculpted two figures from a block of marble. Giambologna decided to carve three. And Giambologna's Hercules, also carved from a single block of marble and without a primary viewpoint. Walk around it for the best experience. Number 3. The Ponte Vecchio Bridge. The Ponte Vecchio is the oldest bridge standing in Florence, and one of the oldest segmental arch bridges in the world.
Built in 1345, this used to be the only bridge that you could cross over to the other side of the city. But as the population was growing on the other side of the city, they had to develop 2 more bridges so that it could accommodate for this population growth. And so around about 200 years later, the 2 bridges on either side began being constructed.
As was common in the Middle Ages, the bridge was topped with buildings and structures that were occupied by merchants.
So back in the day, all of these stalls actually used to be like butcher shops and meat stalls, and the smell, obviously, as you can imagine, wasn't that great, and they kept dumping like the leftovers and the blood into the river, which just created this terrible smell.
When the Medici moved their official residence from Palazzo Vecchio to Palazzo Pitti, they decided that they needed a connecting route from their new home to the other side of the river, enabling them to keep out of contact and off the streets with the people they ruled. The result was the Vasari corridor, which runs above the shops, built in 1565 by Giorgio Vasari. When the Medici began using the corridor, the noise and stench were unbearable, and so
they decided that they're changing all of these stalls to the more finer things in life, like jewelry and gold and the bougie luxury stuff. And basically, that's kind of how it stayed. So if you're looking to buy those kinds of items, the Ponte Vecchio Bridge is a perfect place to do it.
The corridor runs from Palazzo Pitti all the way to the Uffizi gallery and is approximately 1 kilometer long. Built as a system of defense, the windows and artistic elements that we see today were added after the shops were sold to the merchants.
Ponte Vecchio is the only bridge that survived the bombings in World War II, as well as 2 major floods. When the Germans were fleeing the city in 1944, they destroyed all the other bridges. However, the Ponte Vecchio was the only one that was spared. But the same couldn't be said about the area on either side. Instead of destroying the bridge itself, they actually blew both sides, all the buildings around it, so that when the Allies arrived, they couldn't cross the river. They had to clear all the rubble before they could move across. There are a lot of legends surrounding why the Ponte Vecchio wasn't actually destroyed. One of them says Hitler at the last moment decided that it was too pretty to be downed. Another one was that an old man went and disconnected all the bombs before it blew. However, the true reason, from my understanding, is that this man on the plaque behind me, I'm not going to pretend to pronounce German names properly, I'm just going to say Gerard Wolff, I'm guessing, who was kind of the mediator, the middleman between Germany and Florence, and he was one of the major reasons why this bridge was saved. As you're passing through Florence, don't forget to keep your eyes on the streets above you, as you'll be able to find a few little hidden treats and gems, such as this plaque. It's from Dante's Inferno, and it references how you cross over the Arno River.
Keep an eye out for the Manelli Tower, one of the 4 towers on the Ponte Vecchio. The other 3 were demolished during the construction of the Vasari corridor. The ancient sundial on the roof of a shop overlooking the little square at the center of the bridge tells time by the hour, and its little gecko is considered a sign of luck to people walking on the bridge. The bust on the bridge is of Benvenuto Cellini, a 16th century Italian artist who started his career as a goldsmith on the Ponte Vecchio. Number 4. Palazzo Pitti. From its striking exterior to its rich history and cultural significance, Palazzo Pitti is the largest and most opulent palace you will find in Florence. Situated along one of the main roads leading into Florence, where the Ponte Vecchio crosses the Arno River, its creation and development spanned 400 years, beginning in the mid-1400s. Palazzo Pitti is the 3rd official residence of the Medici, who, without changing its name, gave rise to the rebirth of this area of Florence, later imitated by other nobles who built their palaces here. Subjected to numerous alterations and additions over the centuries, the palace housed 2 other dynasties, the House of Habsburg-Lorraine and the Kings of Italy from the House of Savoy. It was eventually turned into a museum complex in the late 19th century and houses a silver museum, modern art gallery, Palatine gallery, and a museum of Russian icons, to name only a few. Behind it lies the Boboli Gardens, the largest green space in the historical center of Florence, and considered to be one of the finest royal gardens in Europe. Today, Palazzo Pitti is a testament to the opulence and grandeur of the Renaissance era, with its sprawling gardens, ornate architecture, and vast collections of art and artifacts. For more information, check out our full video and travel guide to Palazzo Pitti and the Boboli Gardens. Number 5. Renaissance Art Museums. During your travels through Florence, you'll repeatedly come across one word: Renaissance. The Renaissance was a period of cultural and intellectual flourishing in Europe that spanned roughly from the 14th to the 17th century. Famous for being the birthplace of the Renaissance, Florence is the city with the highest concentration of Renaissance art and architecture, reaching its heights under the patronage of the Medici family. You may recognize names such as Leonardo da Vinci, Botticelli, and Michelangelo. Florence's streets are adorned with magnificent architectural masterpieces, while its museums house an extensive collection of Renaissance artworks. These are the top Renaissance museums in Florence. The Uffizi Gallery, located next to Palazzo Vecchio and home to over 2,200 works of art, the Uffizi Gallery is a world-renowned treasure trove of art and culture, spread across 3 floors of a magnificent 16th century building with numerous halls and corridors. It houses priceless works of art from the 12th to 18th centuries, with one of the largest collections of Renaissance artwork. Its collection of masterpieces are from some of the greatest artists in history, and among visiting artists, you'll find Botticelli, Leonardo da Vinci, Giotto, Michelangelo, and Caravaggio. The gallery also boasts an invaluable collection of ancient statues and busts from ancient Rome, thanks to the Medici family.
The Uffizi Gallery used to be the administrative offices of the Medici, as Uffizi means offices in Italian.
The Accademia Gallery. While not the most exciting building from the outside, the Accademia Gallery houses, you guessed it, important works of art by the best artists of the Renaissance. This is where you're going to find Michelangelo's original masterpiece, the Statue of David. Michelangelo was only 26 years old when he was commissioned to sculpt David from one single solid marble block, and he stands 17 feet in height, 4.3 meters. Carved to be displayed high up and seen from below. Keep an eye out for a few abnormalities. Michelangelo scaled some of his body parts disproportionately. David's head, arms, and his right hand are much larger than they should be. The replica in front of Palazzo Vecchio doesn't even come close to the true impressiveness of the real David, with his incredibly realistic details like protruding veins and naturally tensed muscles. Here you will also find Michelangelo's intentionally unfinished 4 prisoners, the Hall of the Colossus, the Hall of Models, Gothic rooms, and for music lovers, the Department of Musical Instruments with the oldest preserved upright piano in the world, and a unique, unchanged tenor viola from 1690, one of the most expensive instruments in the world. The Bargello Museum. While lesser visited than the 2 previously mentioned museums, the Bargello is well worth a visit if you're a huge fan of sculpture. Housed within a majestic medieval palace and one of the oldest buildings in Florence, the Bargello Museum is the Uffizi Gallery of Sculpture. Here you will find some of the most important collections of Renaissance sculptures and masterpieces. The museum is home to works by Michelangelo, Giambologna, Cellini, and many other artists, as well as featuring a Donatello room housing the artist's most famous works. Over time, the museum was enriched with vast collections of bronzes, ceramics, waxes, enamels, medals, seals, ivories, amber, tapestries, furniture, and textiles from the Medici collections, as well as the oldest known portrait of Dante Alighieri, Islamic art, and an incredible room displaying arms and armor that survived the dispersion of the Medici armory. The Bargello's armory room is by far one of the coolest rooms I've been into in Florence. And if you play Skyrim, this is like a super cool place to visit because all the weapons here you can actually get in Skyrim. It's really fascinating. The huge spear has 2 barrels on either side. That's the helmet of video games. 9-barrel pistol musket. It's crazy. This was the armor of Prince Cosimo III. I'm guessing when he was younger, unless he never grew into a fully grown adult. You may also notice a few familiar pieces here, such as a Marzocco line, the emblem of the city of Florence, whose replica sits in front of Palazzo Vecchio, or the original bronze tiles crafted by Brunelleschi and Ghiberti for the famous competition to design the doors of the Florence Baptistry, which Ghiberti won. A number of historical events took place here, and to mark the passing of time, the museum also houses an imposing bell, famous for playing only at the turn of each century. Comment below and let us know which of these attractions is your favorite. Subscribe to follow the adventure.